Hello and a warm welcome. Thanks for joining us on News Plus. I am Chinon Sopam. Now, the Acting Comptroller General of the Nigerian Customs Service, NCS, Wale Adeniyi, has clarified that the federal government has not ordered the reopening of all land borders shut across the country since 2018. Addressing newsmen after meeting with President Bola Tinubu at the State House in Abuja, the customs boss said the borders, which were not among the 5 selected strategic borders reopened in 2022, still remain shut. Although a thorough review of the situation was currently ongoing, Adeniyi disclosed that as part of the efforts to enhance border security and regional integration, he planned to within 1 week visit the Republic of Benin to engage in discussions with their customs administration. According to him, the aim was to foster collaboration, address border security concerns, facilitate importation across the border, and explore technological solutions to complex border challenges. Now, the House of Representatives has urged the National Security Advisor to declare the killings in Plateau State a national emergency. This was sequel to a motion of urgent public importance by Dachong Bagos from Plateau State on terrorist attacks on Mangu communities of Mangu Bokos Federal Constituency of Plateau State. According to the lawmaker, most of the victims that sustained various degrees of injuries are currently receiving medical attention at different hospitals within the state. He expressed worries that the continuous attacks by the terrorist groups in the communities, if not addressed immediately, will lead to low farming yield, which will worsen the existing food uncertainty in the communities.
Concerned that most of my people live in fear of the unknown due to insecurity and can no longer access their farmlands and their mining sites. Further concern that unless the issue of insecurity is handled with doggedness at all levels in the country, citizens will experience food shortage, as Plateau is one of the main producers of food crops in the country.
The call is for the security operatives to provide aerial surveillance and support to flush out terrorists and destroy their camps to avoid reoccurrence and allow innocent farmers to return to their farms and ancestral homes.
Handle the killings going on in Plateau State as a national emergency because of the gravity of which these killings are being done and the constant reoccurrence. I believe if the Office of the National Security Advisor comes into this, there will be a difference.
The House unanimously adopted the motion and urged the Secretary to the Government of the Federation to direct the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development through the National Emergency Management Agency (NEMA) and National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons to immediately provide relief materials to the victims of the attack in communities within Mangu local government area. And now, a High Court of the Federal Capital Territory sitting in Jukwe granted an order of interim injunction stopping the federal government from trespassing or demolishing the Trademore estate located in Lugbe in Abuja. The court, presided over by Justice Zubairu Mohammed, granted the developers of the estate, Trademore International Holdings Nigeria Limited, an order for maintenance of the status quo. The judge made the order after hearing the ex parte application argued by Benson Igbanwa, leading Vivian Uche, and holding the brief of the plaintiff's counsel, Mike Ezokome. The senior advocate had, on behalf of the estate, filed a suit against some functionaries and agencies of the federal government who had threatened to demolish the estate over flooding concerns. The judge thereafter adjourned the motion on notice for hearing to September 22, 2023. And now the Vice President Kashim Shettima and Malala Yousafzai, a Pakistani female education activist, on Wednesday at the presidential villa in Abuja, held talks on girl-child education. And now the report.
The world's youngest Nobel Prize laureate, Malala Yousafzai, also the UN Messenger of Peace, pays this visit to presidential villa to see the Vice President, Kashim Shettima. The education activist, accompanied by UN Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed, told State House correspondents that visiting Nigeria was part of activities to mark her 26th birthday celebration.
People spoke out for my education. I want them to think about the education of other girls as well. In Nigeria, I'm here because girls' education is important here. It will determine the future of Nigeria.
Malala said she had gone to Borno and met incredible girls, visited their schools and conferred with education activists.
I'm here because I want to bring attention to those issues. I'm here to speak today as well and share my thoughts with the communities, and I was so lucky that I was able to meet girls in Abuja. I was also able to go to Borno State and meet incredible girls.
She also says she has been to Nigeria 3 times and expressed optimism that girl child had bright prospects.
It is the work of the education activists, girls, and civil society and government that gives us hope that we can have a better future for education of all children, especially girls here. And I was very lucky that I had the meeting with the Vice President, and he gave us his time, he gave us his support.
She lauded the commitment of the government and other stakeholders to improving girl-child education.
All states and all party members make a commitment to ensure that every child in Nigeria has access to a complete education, which includes senior secondary education as well, that every child has access to a free and quality education. And the second ask is to ensure that we make the full financial commitment to ensure that no child is left behind in this country.
On her part, Mohammed said Malala's visit was in furtherance of her advocacy for girl-child education.
We have a large number of out-of-school children. We know that the quality of education is not what every child should have in this country. And the advocacy to an administration that is coming in that believes in education is an important timing.
She said Malala should be an inspiration for relevant authorities to address the high number of out-of-school children in Nigeria.
So her voice, her inspiration, not just to government but to the rest of society, to governors that we met yesterday, is extremely important as this administration begins its journey of the next 4 years.
From the State House in Abuja, Dr. Spello, Viewer Television News.
Concerned about the current situation of drug distribution, the Association of Community Pharmacists in Nigeria, ACPN, has called for ethical drug distribution, regretting that the current system of dispensing medicines creates security dangers to the citizens' health. Mourning the situation of drug distribution in the country, the association said that infiltrators and quacks have taken over its distribution channels. In a statement jointly signed by Wole Oladigbonla, chairman, and Ambrose Eze, secretary, the association said the challenges of medicine security have always been tied to the non-production of active pharmaceutical ingredients in Nigeria. The association further said that the PCN Act 2022 is a worthy departure from the ugly past when laws did not place much premium on regulatory control and the safe use of drugs. And still on health matters, the federal government says it has enrolled 500 persons with disabilities into the permanent secretary, Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Social Development. Dr. Sani Guerzo stated this at a symbolic presentation of the NHI's identity cards to the beneficiaries on Wednesday in Abuja. According to him, the move will ensure affordable health care coverage for PWDs across the country. Guerzo spoke when he led a delegation to the palace of the traditional ruler and the head of the PWDs at Karomanjiji in Abuja. The enrollment exercise was facilitated by the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities. The National Examinations Council, NECO, has released the results of the 2023 National Common Entrance Examination for admission into the 110 federal government colleges as the unity schools across Nigeria. Of the 69,829 pupils who sat for the examination, 76 pupils had the highest score of 203. The Permanent Secretary of the Federal Ministry of Education, David Adejo, after receiving the results from the Registrar of the NECO, Ibrahim Washishi, said a total of 79,865 pupils registered for the examination. He further applauded the examination body for the conduct of the examination, amongst others. The examination was written on June 3, 2023 in Nigeria, Benin Republic, and Togo. And now President Bola Tinubu has written to the National Assembly seeking amendment of the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act to allow the government source 500 billion naira for palliatives to cushion the effect of subsidy removal. In a letter read on the floor of the House during Wednesday plenary by the Speaker Tajuddin Abbas, the President said the money will be sourced from the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act of 819.5 billion naira. The letter titled Request for the Amendment of the 2022 Appropriation Act read in part, I write to request the approval of the House of Representatives an amendment of the 2022 Appropriation Act in accordance with the law. The Speaker said the House will consider the President's request at plenary on Thursday and asks members will to make contribution to be prepared to do so.
Request for the amendment of the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act. I write to request the approval of the House of Representatives for the amendment of the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act in accordance with the attached. The request has become necessary in order to, among other things, source for funds necessary to provide palliatives to mitigate the effect of the recent removal of fuel subsidy on Nigerians.
Now let's go on a quick break. There's more when News Plus returns.
In this 21st century where all the information we need is now in the palm of our hands. News from around the world, entertainment, celebrity gossip, sports, and much more. The only thing that you need is the right source. TV is now on the go. Simply check us out on our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter for all the information you need.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still watching News Plus on Viewer Television. Now, the House of Representatives has called for the suspension of the implementation of increase in tuition fees of universities. This was sequel to the motion sponsored by Aliyu Madaki, noting that the hike in fees by the universities is happening against the worsening poverty level in the country, inflation and high rate of unemployment, and the recent fuel price hike.
Also concerned that the increase could cause disruptions for a number of students who could not afford the fees, while many of them could be forced to defer their studies. Others could drop out. Worried that the hike may aggravate the already volatile situation in the country, as students are already making threats which could lead to an uprising with grievous consequence for the country as a whole. Also worried that an increased rate of university dropout may further worsen.
He urged the National Universities Commission to immediately halt implementation of the increase of fees by federal universities, while mandating the Committee on Tertiary Education and Services, when constituted, to investigate the increase of fees by federal universities across the country with a view to finding lasting solutions to the challenges in the tertiary education sector. And now the House of Representatives has summoned the Nigerian Football Federation, NFF, to appear before it on Thursday over issues surrounding the protest by Super Falcons ahead of the Female World Cup, which begins next week. The House equally warned the NFF to immediately pay outstanding match bonuses and allowances to the Super Falcons. The House also resolved to set up an ad hoc committee to investigate the dispute between the Super Falcons and the NFF and propose necessary reforms to prevent the planned protest and boycott of the Nigerian female football team at the Women's World Cup, also to prevent future occurrences. The House resolution followed a motion by Olamide Osoba at the plenary on Wednesday. Moving the motion, Osoba said the national female football team is facing significant challenges and unrest threatening to disrupt participation in the upcoming Women's World Cup.
A motion on the need to intervene in the protest of the Nigerian female football team and the plan to boycott the 2023 Women's World Cup. I'll go straight to the prayers, as Mr. Speaker has said we should. I urge the House to resolve to set up another committee to investigate the dispute between the Super Falcons and the Nigerian Football Federation and propose necessary reforms to prevent the planned protest and boycott of the World Cup 2023.
And on the international scene, North Korea has fired a long-range ballistic missile. The South Korean military said days after Pyongyang threatened to down U.S. spy planes that violated its airspace. Relations between the two Koreas are at one of their lowest points ever, with diplomacy stalled and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un calling for increased weapons development, including tactical nukes. In response, Seoul and Washington have ramped up security cooperation, vowing that Pyongyang would face a nuclear response and the end of its current government were it to ever use its nuclear weapons against the Allies. South Korea's military said it had detected the launch of a long-range ballistic missile from the Pyongyang area around 10 a.m. There's been heavy rainfall in Côte d'Ivoire, which has caused the deaths of 30 people since the beginning of April, indicating a particularly intense rainy season. Ivorian government spokesman Amadou Ekoli Bali said on Wednesday torrential rains followed by devastating floods are a recurring occurrence in Côte d'Ivoire's largest city, which has a population of nearly 6 million. Precarious constructions and flood-prone areas inhabited by poor populations are rampant in this overgrowing metropolis. On Wednesday, Amadou Kalibali pledged that in response to this alarming situation, the government will reinforce the pre-positioning of emergency services in at-risk areas and continue the destruction of informal housing in these zones. Last year, 19 people died in several episodes of heavy rainfall. And now the United Nations has revealed that nearly 3 months of war in Sudan have uprooted more than 3 million people and called for the warring sides to face accountability. Fighting has raged in the northeast African country since mid-April when Army Chief